Hey, what's up y'all? My name is Stevie Matt, and today I'll be discussing Zack Snyder's Justice League. It was released in 2021, it was directed by Zack Snyder, and written by Chris Terrio. Welcome to It's Not That Deep. First off, if you're just here to see if it's worth it to watch this long-ass movie, I'll just give you the quick answer now. Yes, it is absolutely, I think it is definitely worth it to watch this movie. And it is split into parts, so like if you need to take breaks, it's very easy to find the places where you can do that because it's literally split into labeled parts. But this is not a spoiler-free video. I will be discussing it as if you've seen the movie, so if you are avoiding spoilers, bookmark this video, come back to it after you've watched the movie. Again, not spoiler-free. But I promise you'll come back. Okay. We good now? Alright, bet. So I cannot jump onto this whopper of a movie without first acknowledging that I wasn't really even on board with this in the first place. Personally, I've enjoyed DC movies, pretty much all of them. Yes, even those ones. I have a lot of issues with his work, but I do respect Snyder as a filmmaker. And honestly, I enjoyed Justice League for what it was, the first time around. It wasn't awful, but it just wasn't great. It was what it was, and what it was a thrill ride. Whatever. Bad movies happen, flops happen. The movies that have come out since this one have been fantastic. The rest of us had just moved on, but there was this group of fanboys, and yeah, mostly fanboys, who just could not move on. And I was not here for the way that they were carrying on. They were harassing people, term searching words on Twitter, and harassing people for having different opinions than them. And I really do just mean like having negative things to say about DC or Justice League or Snyder. And it was just like, y'all are doing too much, like let it go. The rest of us have moved on, y'all can do the same. So that I was not here for. And while I will always stand by my words that the way that they carried on was absolutely unacceptable behavior, and I do worry that Warner Brothers making this reality, making this movie a reality is going to enable them further, and I really hope it doesn't, but who knows. I will also stand pleasantly corrected on the many doubts I had on this movie being extremely different and much, much better. So first of all, Joss Whedon's old conehead looking ass ain't seeing heaven. Let's start there. Mostly for the way that he treats the people around him, especially the women around him. That's his biggest offense, by far. If you don't know the tea on that, you can go look it up elsewhere, because this video ain't about that. But that's his biggest offense. Absolutely, period. But also, the way what he did to Black Widow in Age of Ultron, and now what he did and how he absolutely mangled Justice League, that ain't gonna help his case when he come face to face with St. Peter. When this movie first came out, I remember thinking, okay, I guess he's good at banter. I'll give him that much. But honestly, after watching this version, fuck all that. Fuck good at banter. He really just sucks all the heart out of his characters and out of the movie altogether. And now that we have one movie with two versions so that we can really compare his work with that of another director's, it just throws his weaknesses into like stark contrast. Good lord. Now, I understand that the theatrical version lies both on Whedon and Warner Brothers executives like Jeff Johns. Objectively, I get that. Understand that. Objectively, I understand that the blame is shared. However, I'm still gonna drag Whedon's name all up and through the mud for this whole movie for funsies because it's what he deserves. Anywho, there were things changed in this version that I just do not understand at all. So there were some major structural changes that I can understand. I don't like them per se, but I can understand why they did something like, like cutting Darkseid out altogether and just making Steppenwolf the main villain. Again, I don't care for it, but I guess for the sake of theatrical length, I guess I can get it. Whatever. But then there are changes that I really just cannot wrap my head around, but there is a pattern that I noticed to them, and this is why I say he sucked all the heart out of this movie and he ain't seeing heaven. One of the main things I notice about this version is that it never forgets its humanity. There are little things throughout the movie like Hippolyta taking time to protect and like grieve her warriors during that fight with Steppenwolf, and then like Diana checking in with the hostages. It's like that. She shares those like inspiring words with that little girl after she saves them from the bomber dude in that first sequence, and that stuff is just not present in Whedon's cut at all. He cuts before we get there. And then there's the harbor rescue scene. And whoo boy, let's talk about the harbor rescue scene for a moment. So in Whedon's version, we get that little bit of Barry freaking out and Bruce convincing him, just save one person. And then that of course snowballs into him saving them one by one while the rest of them just go off and fight Steppenwolf. But that's not before old Steppy comes in and he's shown tormenting and taunting, and like he even kills one of them for simply whining about their families. Like that's the whole thing of that scene. But here in this version though, Silas actually saves that person by speaking up, and then Victor steps in and starts the battle, and so we never actually lose any civilians in that fight, nor do we, the audience, have to see people being tormented for really no reason on screen. He's still villainous, but we don't have to deal with just watch him torture them for no good reason. And then more importantly, you have Barry and Victor working together to save everybody, with these little moments between Vic and his father thrown in there that really push their relationship a bit further. And then Bruce and Diana are fending off the parademons, and you see the broader theme of the movie, which is like, this group of loner strangers learning how to work together as a team. You see that start to come together here. And that theme is first established in that Age of Heroes fight against Darkseid that we get, which is hella expanded here. And you get that theme of unifying against a common enemy that first emerges here through Diana's narration, and and you see the different groups teaming up in different ways to defeat the invaders. You're just really getting that sense of of teamwork and camaraderie coming through here that wasn't present in Whedon's version. And now, I watched the theatrical version the night before this one released to sort of refresh my memory, and I realized, even there, that's what this movie was going for, this ragtag group of meta-humans learning to work together. But it fell so flat in that version because there was no respect for the characters, no humanity, no heart. Just superficial banter, which is what Whedon is good for. And here's the thing, you can make the argument for time, right? But then that doesn't explain the random-ass Russian families that just pops up out of nowhere. Again, we cut Wonder Woman's intro scene at her blowing the dude away. We cut the harbor rescue scene into shreds. We cut Hippolyta caring for her warriors, but it's not just cut for time, because you then have this Russian family and these other civilians living under this nuclear reactor in this hella radioactive zone. You have them, and they exist completely disconnected from the rest of the narrative until the very end, when Barry and Superman do that thing where they make a competition of saving them all. So they could have made room. The whole competition thing, the race thing was so between Barry and Clark was kind of cute, sure, but it's so impersonal compared to what we got in this version, which was so much more organic. And again, I don't understand why these changes were made, other than Whedon favoring spectacle over substance and really just having no care for the people in his story. They're just fodder for his cool scenarios and cool moments or whatever, but they don't actually, their humanity doesn't matter. And even then, this version's climax is so much cooler. You have the Flash rewinding time in order to save the day. Cyborg overpowering the mother boxes with that whole scene was gorgeous. And then you have Superman jumping in for the final push. Come on. Arthur and Diana do a tag team move and actually destroy Steppenwolf. So instead of which was another thing that was weird. We have people dying in the Whedon cut, so it's not like they were avoiding death, and yet here in his version Steppenwolf doesn't die, and here we chop his head off. So it's who actually experiences violence and who doesn't in Whedon's version versus Snyder's is very telling. But come on, man, that whole climax was so good. I actually got chills watching it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not being dramatic. Well, yeah, I am being dramatic. I'm always being dramatic, whatever. But I legit got chills during some of that climax. I was in it, okay? But you see what happens when you actually take time to develop your characters. It enriches your story and it enriches your climax, because that was a wild ride. Whedon may conjure some cute banter here and there, and I may have some deeper issues again with Snyder's directorial eye. Never forget that. But between the two of them, Snyder's by far the superior. By far. And the banter here was still intact, right? There are still quips and playful moments between characters, none of which include racial jokes between Barry and Victor, or Barry falling onto Diana's boobs for no good goddamn reason, and all of which feel much more natural and earned. So honestly, we seriously have no need for Joss Whedon anymore. Society has progressed past the need for Joss conehead ass Whedon. Now that I've gotten my Whedon bashing out of the way, though I may still have a few clips in the chamber, so stay tuned. But let me pivot to just this cut on its own merit, right? I had mentioned earlier how I'd realized on the second viewing of the theatrical cut, the Whedon cut, if you will, but I'd realized that was the point, you know, and because the Snyder Cut executed it so much better, it really cemented for me that that's what the movie was going for. You know, this movie was supposed to be about this group of deeply troubled strangers, heroes used to heroing all alone, you know, them learning to work through their grief so that they can come together and fight a common threat. So you get so much time spent on like their individual character arcs and their relationships. You know, you get little things like Barry and Victor choosing to dig up Clark's grave slowly to respect the gravity of what they're doing. Bruce and Alfred are constantly discussing Bruce's shortcomings and his inner struggles, you know, his struggles with human connection, and like, you're gonna be the one to bring these people together? You barely know how to speak to another human, Bruce, come on. You have that moment of Arthur taking that moment to, after Silas dies, to comment on how unfair it is to Victor what they have to ask of him. Hell, even Steppenwolf gets some actual development in this version. Like, he has a backstory and all kinds of shit. Like, huh? Come on. Barry's backstory is revealed organically through dialogue rather than like Diana spoon feeds it to us in Whedon's version through exposition, which is like, seeing how it could have been done is like, that's how you do it. And then Victor actually gets the time to tell his story in full, and we get Victor's story in full here. He gets a full ass arc. His relationship with Silas is fleshed out, everything, you know, he is so crucial to this plot. And again, this is why Whedon ain't seeing heaven for what he did to Ray Fisher and to Cyborg's plot, because it was foul. And but that scene where Cyborg drops a grip into that woman's bank account, like no questions asked, right as she's about to get evicted, or she had gotten evicted, that legit brought me to tears. I had to pause because I was crying so hard. I'm sorry, that one hit a note for me. I wish, please. But that's the power of direct and immediate aid, baby. You know, that's literally one of the most heroic things ever portrayed in a comic book movie. I'm sorry. I like this Bruce, I really do. I like how he was fleshed out in this version, but his rich ass really needs to take some notes. Like, less building of your own personal surveillance state and more dropping coin right into people's pockets. Well, I bet that clean up Gotham real quick. Diana too. I know you sitting on Coin Miss Art History Museum. I see you. You ain't out of this either. At least Barry is broke. Barry is broke. Who else? Aquaman lives in the sea. He ain't got to worry about money. But Bruce and Diana, y'all got coin. Y'all better cough it up. But yeah, we get a whole fucking arc for Cyborg that was completely cut from Whedon's version. He's central to the plot. And then lastly, Superman's return actually has the right gravitas to it. It has the right weight when he comes back. It's supposed to be a big deal, and here it actually feels like it. And you get that really beautiful scene when he returns to his ship of, you know, his two dads talking alongside each other in his head. It's like a voiceover about the goodness of his heart and the hope that he brings to the world. And this is after Lois has helped reground him, and he has that really beautiful reunion with his mother. You know, it's a direct callback to the internal battle that he's had since Man of Steel, you know, where he has this angst and rage at feeling, no pun intended, alienated. And that's, you know, that's quelled by the love of the people closest to him. And it's just, it's fantastic. And this is what I think makes me like the DCEU over the MCU for the most part. You know, each hero has a deeply tragic backstory that they have to overcome in order to step into their hero-ness, their heroism, whatever. Whereas most of the Avengers come from very privileged backgrounds, and their arcs, if they have one, I'm looking at you, Cap, their arcs are about humbling them. I mean, that's also what endears me to like Tony Stark and Thor, because their arcs actually have movement and progression, and they're handled well. But I guess, I don't know, I guess it still just doesn't resonate to me, with me the same as, say, like Arthur's abandonment issues, or Victor's deep resentment of his father, or like Bruce. You know, many argue that DC is too dark, and I guess it's just a matter of personal preference, because I actually favor their dark backstories over like MCU's shiny glitz and glam. It just makes for more compelling characters to me. Now, that being said, despite Snyder having a much stronger eye than Whedon, I still have no fucking idea how they would have edited this down to a theatrical length and maintained its integrity. Like, best case scenario, I guess they probably could have split it into a two-part event, like, you know, Harry Potter and Hunger Games and all that shit that was a thing for a while. But I guess they could have done that. But honestly, given the bad rep that the franchise had garnered by that point, they might not have wanted to take that risk, and they would have just tried to squeeze this down into one movie and eek. Maybe 3 hours would have been enough and we could have got that. Or maybe it would have been its own kind of mess. You know, Warner Brothers has a bad habit of tripping over its own feet a lot regarding DC. So who knows? Personally, I would have liked to see this as a limited series that, like, you know, introduces the characters in the way that we get in this movie, and then followed by the feature films that flesh out their individual characters and arcs, and then we get the next big outing. I mean, it's already cut into parts. It's perfectly tailored for that. So, like, it would have been cool. I know that would not have worked then, because streaming was not what it is now, which is crazy because that's only like 4 years ago how far it's come that quickly, but technology. But yeah, there just really wasn't a space for that kind of thing to happen. Maybe we could have got it on Netflix, but I don't know. I just couldn't see it happening in 2017 when this movie came out. So I understand why they had to do a theatrical release, but it would have been cool. I don't know. I like the idea of limited series. But speaking of Warner Brothers, I understand that, you know, Snyder stepping away so suddenly and so near the finish line really threw a wrench into things, though again, we do not begrudge him for that because he had more than valid reasons for doing so. So we don't hold anything against him for that. What I don't understand is them nuking the entire franchise the way that they did. You know, all the stuff with Darkseid, Superman possibly going rogue, Luthor teaming up with Deathstroke to come for Batman, like Martian Manhunter. Why did Snyder leaving mean we had to unplant all those seeds and merely reduce Steppenwolf to like an isolated, forgettable ass villain? I feel like there is probably an actual documented answer to that, but I don't want to hold up making this video trying to find it, so if someone knows it off top and can link me to an article about it or something, feel free to drop it in the comments, because I'm really curious, like, why did y'all fuck that up that way? God. Now, Snyder does a lot of things right here, but good lord, somebody please take the aux cord away from that man. We're all going to make fun of the lady ululating. I think that's the right term, but even if it isn't, I just wanted to use it because I've never said it out loud until now. Ululating. Anyway, we're all gonna make fun of the lady ululating every time Wonder Woman came on screen, and I do mean every time, like, sir. And rightfully so. But honestly, Star Wars did the same thing with Darth Vader, and it was just as silly. I'm sorry. I know. You're not supposed to say that it's a Legendary's movie score and everything, but it was the same concept when you really think about it. Probably executed a little better, you could argue, but it's still the same thing. But still, beyond that even, every time a song played over a scene, like a song with lyrics that was supposed to like amp up the emotion of the scene, it was such a painful choice. Especially Aquaman's like re-entry into the ocean after he saves that fisherman. Like, that was the only part of this movie, this version, where I was like, I kind of like the way they did it in the other one just a little bit better. Mostly because it just wasn't distracting from Jason Momoa being all of that. But yeah, that one was mad cheesy. Good lord. And Hollywood should honestly be banned from using that damn Hallelujah song for a good long while. Like, its use as a song in film peaked in Shrek 2, and we should just let it rest at that. Truly. Please. Pretty please. And also, I've said this since I watched Man of Steel the first time, but Snyder's like messianic framing of Superman gets on my nerves. Like, I get it, he's both the savior of this planet and a person with full characterization and internal struggles and conflict and all of that goodness. And honestly, that's probably what makes me like this version of Superman, you know, the DCEU Superman over other versions that I'm normally not invested in him as a character because he's a fucking Boy Scout. But do we constantly have to give him the Jesus light? Like every outside shot, really? Please, my good sir, please just dial it back a bit. I promise you we'll still be picking up whatever you're throwing down. Just dial it back. Okay, before I wrap this up, let me just say one more thing about that bald-headed ass, conehead looking ass scallywag. Of all the minor, unnecessary differences in his version, it is not lost on me that he took out Victor's backstory, first of all, completely. Fuck you for that. On its own. But then he replaced it with Bruce needlessly digging into Diana over Steve Trevor. Nor is it lost on me that in his version, instead of "you spoke," Lois says to Clark, "you smell good," creeper. Nor is it lost on me that in his version, Lois doesn't come back to the monument of her own accord, but instead she's reduced to one of Bruce's tools to calm Clark down, like a sort of emergency backup plan. Like she doesn't even get that agency on her own. There was no reason he had to cut out her visiting the monument. Sure, you didn't need those like multiple times, but you could have just shown her real quick coming to the monument on her own so that when she appears in that battle against Superman, it would make sense. You did not have to cut it and change it so that she was a backup plan like Bruce's tool. Again, not seeing heaven. Whew. Okay, glad I got that off my chest. This channel is not a Whedon friendly zone, let that be clear. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. I have never been happier to be so wrong about a movie. I love being wrong when it means I get to enjoy things. I love enjoying things so much, so much. And I really enjoyed the hell out of this movie. It truly blew me away. I wish the timing would have been right to have made it like a limited series. That would have been so cool. And I'm really sad about all the many seeds planted in this movie and this version that we'll probably never see get brought to light. I mean, I still need Snyder to chill out with the Jesus light, but I am glad that the US patriotism that pops up in a lot of his other work was toned down here. And honestly, I gained a lot of respect for him as a filmmaker off this one. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button to show some love. Feel free to leave a comment down below. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another one. Check me out on Twitter and Coffee for more ways to stay up to date and show support. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next video.